Alaina Sawaya, TACFIT Team Leader, Firefighter. Just became a firefighter, a full firefighter. You're on probation.
Yep.
How many, for months? I don't know how many months.
A year.
A year, holy, yeah, a whole year.
Yep.
Is it true that you just were on a shift and you just flew, you got off your shift and flew here straight?
I did. I finished a 48-hour and drove to the airport, got on the airport.
There we go.
Let me scoot up.
Say it again, yeah? Just talk into the microphone.
Okay. Oh, this is all so new.
It's okay.
Yeah, I just got off a 48-hour shift and got straight on the plane. Now I'm here.
Did a photo shoot.
Did a
and
photo
we're doing
shoot.
a podcast.
Doing a podcast, and then we're going to hang out. Just keep rallying.
Yeah, Flow Fit tomorrow.
Definitely.
Flow Fit footage. Yeah, a lot of things happening. Really excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, really cool.
Here. I'm excited about all of this. There's a lot of good things going on.
Yeah. It's been a process, right? For all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A couple of years of just trying to make TACFIT a global community.
Yeah. How did you meet Scott?
I met him in Bellingham.
Right.
I moved to Bellingham. I think I had my business open for about a year, and some mutual friends said, you got to meet this guy, Scott Sonnen, because I think you'd really dig what he teaches. Because they, a friend of mine became a client for a while, and she knew Jody and Scott.
Okay.
And so she just training with me, and learning my training philosophy. I was always trying to teach her mobility and soft tissue release, do the things that release tension before you start your workout. And then we do the workout, and then we really spent time releasing and doing holds afterwards, just because I was like, it's not just about strength and cardio and conditioning. Like, you really have to take care of your tissues. And she's like, man, you got to meet Scott Sonnen. And so I met him, and it was a pretty rapid progression of, I started.
We had done another podcast, right? And you started training people and you started like training, being a trainer in Washington, right? And I mean, to Washington, in Seattle.
Yeah.
In Seattle.
Yep. I got my start in Seattle. I became a certified strength and conditioning specialist in 2008 and worked at one of the largest facilities.
It was like the Equinox of.
It's like an Equinox of Seattle. It's called the Pro Club. Okay. Yep. There was 150 trainers, and I loved it. I became a performance coach. Sorry. I became a performance coach and one of the elite trainers there, and really enjoyed the community. But it just, long term, it wasn't right for us to be living where we were living. And so we ended up moving to Bellingham, and I opened my own private studio there. You went to college in Bellingham? I did. I went to Western Washington University. I did. Yeah. So after college, you moved to Seattle? I have a longer story than that. Oh, okay. We don't have to go into it. I lived in Europe for a while. Oh, okay. That's right. We lived in Oregon for a while. Okay. I worked in youth outreach ministry for a time, and then became a strength and conditioning coach. Okay. So roundabout way after college. You live a good story, right? I got all sorts of crazy skills and jobs. What was the youth outreach? Could you tell me more about that? Sure. Yeah, you mentioned, we talked about it a little bit. Yeah. I worked in it was adventure camping. So I worked on the camp side of the ministry, and it was, I did a lot of facilities operations, and learned how to run a ropes course and lead mountain bike tours. And I became a food service manager and a hospitality coordinator. So I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, but the mission was to just hang out with kids and hear their stories and get to know them and help them to feel connected and help them to know that they're valuable. Especially middle school, high school are pretty vulnerable times where I think kids are really looking for some guidance and connection. And it was cool to be part of their lives. And, the ministry was non-denominational. There was no intention to push dogma as much as just to connect and help them understand that they're loved and that they matter. And then facilitate big questions about God and who he is and what that means for them. And what made you move to Seattle after moving around? Well, we actually, my husband and I I got married I got married about a year after working in ministry.
Firefighter, TACFIT Team Leader, mother of two, and wife.
And wife, yep. 16 years. We just had our 16th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. So we lived in Oregon, on the Oregon coast, near Cannon Beach. That was where we ran a small lodge, a small outreach facility there. And then had a life shift, and ended up getting an opportunity to travel. We spent some time trekking through the Himalayas in Nepal. And did some backpacking through Turkey, and just kind of some random adventures, and then ended up landing back in Seattle. We thought we had jobs lined up. The whole point was to travel and then come back to new jobs in that transition. And what we were expecting had fallen through. And so I ended up back in Seattle sort of by accident. And the cool part was I ended up getting connected with Pro Club. I ended up doing some self-study and worked my way into a certification and became a trainer or a coach. And that's sort of where my career as a coach began, was in Seattle. So a happy accident.
And then what got you to move back to Bellingham from that?
We spent 2 summers. I would quit my job essentially in order to get the 3 months off. And we were volunteering with it was a youth outreach mountaineering program.
Oh, okay.
So my husband and I spent 2 years basically living off the grid, leading mountaineering adventures.
Moved from Seattle to Bellingham?
Well, this was what got us there. Yeah. So after 2 summers, we spent 2 summers, about 3 months each summer in BC.
Gotcha.
Out in the wilderness. Gotcha. And after the 2nd summer, I just decided there needed to be some changes in our pace, because I knew we wanted to start a family, and where we were living and the pace of my career there and the hours that I was working was really pretty unsustainable to have a family. And so we actually just jumped ship and moved to Bellingham, and a couple of friends helped us figure out how to open my first facility. And so we ended up back in Bellingham. We met there in college, and then ended up moving back there, 6, 7, 8 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful Bellingham.
It is beautiful.
I finally got
you
finally got to show me some of Bellingham. I've been there. It was probably my 5th time, I think.
But you'd never seen it.
And I'd seen the hotel, the carpet in what was the name of that hotel?
Oh gosh.
We should not Holiday Inn, but one of those.
It was terrible.
And the Bellingham Athletic Club.
Yep.
And then just meals in between.
That's it. Yeah, it was basically the hotel, the conference room, the gym, the restaurant, repeat. I don't think you ever saw.
We went out to dinner one time with Scott as well.
We did. We went downtown to Aslan.
Downtown, yeah.
Brewing.
So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. But now I got to stay downtown and kind of feel get the
you stayed stayed at the Leopold, which is an old historic building, right in with a view of the bay.
Yeah, it was nice. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We did the TACFIT Firefighter 101. Shot that, and then we did your FlowFit 101 as well.
Right.
Got you to. I pulled your arm to get it done, right? It was a long day.
Yeah. I mean, you know me. I'm always hesitant to try to do too much and spread myself thin. And I really wanted to do a good job with the FlowFit program. I care a lot about teaching flow. I've just seen the magic of how it reaches anybody and everybody. And I think that there's just a lot of value to that program. So I was hesitant to jump into that while also doing TACFIT Firefighter. And that's...
You wanted to do it right.
Yeah, but that's your strength I think you have a huge vision for things, and you're a hard driver, and you know what you're capable of. And so you pushed me to do what I'm capable of too. And we were able to get it both done.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I'm really excited. I think it comes out next week, so it's
nice.
pretty cool. Yeah. I'm really excited. I think just the time I've spent with you, I've really enjoyed when you teach, the way you teach, and just your understanding of it. Really, really, really cool.
Thank you.
Special.
Always learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I practice, I feel like I learned something new from it.
Yeah. And I remember you were training me. You were helping me for my team leader, my level 2 TACFIT, and we're doing some FMS,
functional movement systems.
You use that a lot when you're a trainer.
I do.
To assess.
I do. When I first started, I had the privilege of getting some training through what was called Athletes Performance. Some of the head coaches at Athletes Performance, which is now called Exos, and they took us through the elite performance coaches were taken through FMS training and certification. So I learned how to assess or do the screen, and I really loved just having a baseline so that you can test and retest and see the progress that you make in a single session. And even more importantly, within a couple of repetitions, knowing if the corrective exercise that you're giving a client works, or whether you need to move on to something else. And because I don't want to send people home with, a prescription of, do these 5 exercises and just send them home and not know if they're really effective for their nervous system. So I loved FMS for that reason. I went on to get certified in their, I think they called it a level 2. It was Kettlebell Strong First, and FMS did a kind of a kettlebell specific corrective training. So I learned how to use the kettlebell as a corrective drill as well, which was just super fun because that's one of my favorite tools. And being able to take the kettlebell and apply it to, you can do a strength and conditioning set, and then within that set, integrate in a corrective strategy. It doesn't feel that abnormal for the client because they're still using a kettlebell, and you're almost tricking them into doing something that's just improving their movement, without them feeling like they're doing I don't know, sometimes corrective drills or PT exercises can feel benign or boring. And I think
for me, I think that's, I got certified in FMS, right?
Right.
I got the level 1, right?
Yeah, you did.
But I like to train, and I like to, that's why I enjoy the CT TACFIT things, right? Because you actually get the things when you're doing it. But it was really nice. It was really helpful. My overhead things, hey, maybe you should rest on doing anything overhead.
Absolutely.
And that really improved, my mobility because I rested those areas, right? And that was a big thing.
And I think, especially for somebody like you that's a professional athlete and have been a professional fighter, you have to understand why. If I'm going to ask you to stop doing something and to back off and rest or do mobility over strength and not compound the problem, I have to be able to help you feel in your body why that's important. Otherwise, you're not going to buy in. And I think FMS at a baseline level is a really great tool for that. And then that, for me, was very organic in seeing the connections between CST and these sort of these simple movements that were corrective, and then realizing that CST going from simple to compound to complex and more circular in nature, addressing all ranges of motion. I really felt like the blend between corrective strategies with FMS into CST was easy for me. And I just started seeing CST, Scott really helped me understand how, and I'm still learning, but it really has helped me see how, the basic flow fit movements or the regressed mobility drills, they are the assessment themselves. And I may not assign point values to it. I may not give you a score at the end, but as a coach, I'm watching your movement. I'm more than that. I'm listening to your breathing, and I'm hearing your compensations happen as I'm assessing you through certain mobility drills. And then I know exactly what we need to work on, what we can push, what we need to hold back on, what your boundaries are for that day, so that we keep you, optimizing the adaptation that we're trying to get and not just pushing you towards breakdown and injury. So I could geek out on it, but I just think it was I'm so thankful that I learned FMS because I think it opened my mind to understanding the value of what TACFIT and what Scott's work really does.
What was it like grabbing a clubbell for the first time?
Oh man.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah. I think Summer Huntington was the person who introduced me to the club because she had them, she's the only person I knew who did CST at the time. And in Bellingham, it's a tight community. And so she actually ended up renting my studio for a time, or not renting it, just using it, because she moved back from New York, and we got connected. And she's like, hey, I would love to show you club bells, and I would love to show you, she's an expert at yoga. And so, and I really wasn't well versed at all in any form of yogic practice. And I was like, great, I can teach you some strength, like take some of your strength or some of your movements and strengthen them. I can teach you a little bit more of like strength and conditioning principles. And, we just started blending, and she brought clubs into the studio for the first time. And, probably like anybody, I just totally underestimated how heavy they would be. Thought they were bats. And
they still call it bats, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Joey Diaz, I was telling you, Joey Diaz always, when I was using those bats.
Yeah, right. I know, like all the guys.
Fire station.
Same thing. The fire department. Yeah, they're like, what's the bat for? And it looks like it would be heavy, right? And so somebody sees me swinging it, and they're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And I'm like, well, why don't we start with just grip it, and let's control, a cast or something. Right. And then all of a sudden, with that displaced center of mass and the weight at the top, and you start to realize, how complex that tool really is. And I don't remember anything but being impressed with it, honestly. Like, I think it lit me up really quick. Just like this, I feel so much that I don't.
What was the first movement that you did? Remember?
I think it was a cast. I think it was just a simple order position shoulder cast. Yeah.
Open your mind up to, yeah. It's nice. 'Cause now the guys lift like barbells, but they totally use all the barbells now and all the tools. But I'm not sorry. They use the clubbells now too, right? So it's really nice. It opens up their mind and like, oh, you're strong. Because in jiu-jitsu, right, you have to be like not just strong on one plane, but you have to be able to twist and be strong. Like I think in life, right, you have to be be able to do that.
Yeah, life happens in the in-betweens.
Right, and so like lifting, doing one direction, like squats or whatever in one direction, doesn't kind of
doesn't translate.
It's not a complete.
It doesn't translate functionally.
Complete strength, right?
Right, and I think there's some other philosophies or movement practices that take end ranges, or it's really interesting to see how there used to be sort of this philosophy that like, there's good movements and there's bad movements. Right. And I think in reality, like, I can only imagine in jiu-jitsu, like there is no good or bad movement. There's just movement. Like sometimes you're in an optimal position and sometimes you're working with what you've got. And I think learn structure, learn the right structure, and then learn mobility so that you can blend those two with the breath, and then everything is optimal. But sometimes you're rotating funny, or you're in a twisted position trying to deliver power. And I think having the club, it just frees you up to move in different ways and really start to feel ranges that might otherwise be problematic. Now you're not as prone to injury in those directions.
Yeah. I mean, you said jiu-jitsu, and you think like, good ways and bad ways, but there's the right way because it's your strongest way. Right. And so it's the same technique for clubbells and, all the bodyweight movements, so all those principles, they translate to everything, right? Not just jiu-jitsu, but everything that we do.
Oh, and that's what has been so fun about creating TACFIT Firefighter with Ryan Provencher. I mean, he's been working on it for a decade, but to be able to see now, going into academy and doing all these new movements, like I'm pretty strong, but you're not strong in something you've never done. So it just takes reps. And it was so humbling to be, working with power tools and, really heavy, forcible entry equipment. We would pry bars and long pike poles and, crazy charged hose lines are very heavy and very hard to maneuver. And you're going upstairs, and it was really physically demanding. And it's been cool to see and to learn in my own body new applications of all this stuff and realize like, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's not different. Like the structure that I've learned, I learned it in one capacity, and now I translate it to this new occupation. And being able to work with Ryan, who's had a career, a lifetime in the fire service, and learning, how do I prevent the injuries that you unfortunately had to handle and work through because you didn't know, and how can I take the knowledge that I'm coming in with and really apply it and don't let it get lost, so that as I'm doing my job and as I'm helping my brothers and sisters in the fire service, how do I take the same movement principles and apply them? Yeah. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with TACFIT Firefighter. Is just set people up for success with that.
I wanted to because I was thinking about the Dangal movie. Do you remember the Dangal movie?
You watched it? You're like, you gotta see this because I have two daughters, right? You have two daughters. Right. Yeah, I got pretty stoked about that movie. And you saw
they use the wooden clubs, right? Yeah. And the thing. So it's just so interesting, right? That there's a reason why right? They use those things.
Yeah. There's a tool for everything.
There's a tool for everything.
It has its application.
But it's like ancient, and I mean, since we're it's the first tool, right, of humans.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
I mean, I would imagine, a club, some sort of blunt force tool for hunting and self-defense.
Yeah.
I mean, we're designed in spiral patterns for a reason, throw and to throw or to club or to hunt.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You got invited to train for a team leader for level 2, right?
I did, yeah. So it started out, I jumped in pretty quick, and I think I tried.
You did the CST. You did the CST.
The trial by fire. You did the CST certification, which was the Club trial by fire.
Circular strength training.
Yep, and then the flow fit. 20 minutes of flow fit, where you go every minute on the minute for a round, and I tried to. It's all a good learning experience.
Yeah.
I tried to skip a few steps. I tried to train for the top level without having done the lower levels. And I think in some ways, like I could get away with making the movements look right. But if you don't start at the bottom and build a foundation, eventually, like somewhere, your weaknesses and your compensations and the things you've skipped leak out. And Scott's wise, and he knows, he knew what I was doing. And I think he knew that I had noble intent and I wasn't trying to cheat, but he kind of called me out at the first cert and was like, hey, why aren't you doing the second, whatever it was? There was multiple levels, and I was just jumping right into the 4th level. And I told him, because I'm going to be one of your team leaders someday, and might as well start now. He's like, that's awesome. Why don't we start at the beginning? So I had to go back, and I got certified level 1, level 2. And then, then a couple years later, got invited to train to become a team leader. So that was a whole different beast. It's a good process, but that was a whole different beast, becoming a team leader.
It took you like a year, your team leader video that's out there, right, on YouTube and stuff. It took you like a whole year of, 100% focus pretty much, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I failed twice. I failed once in Bellingham. You were there. And then I started to attempt again. I guess I finished when we were in Austin. Yep. We tried to go through it again, and just couldn't do it. Just didn't have it. And that was sort of heartbreaking, because I knew at that point, like, I don't have that much left in me before I need a recovery season. Like, you can't just keep performing at this level. I need to break and recover and come at it again later. So, but I pushed myself to go for one more shot, and I extended it out. I think, we spoke with Galazzi, and he extended it. I was able to plan it for August. And so that gave me 5 more months. And that I just took a totally different approach. I really pushed into some, I wouldn't say it was outside of the CST, the circular strength training box, but I implemented a lot more strength training than I had ever, because that was my weakness. I think I had a lot of training in mobility, and I have pretty good flexibility, and flow fit was pretty easy for me in the light clubs. And I just found that the heavier stuff, the high volume with the heavy weight, especially that 24 kilo push press, was so hard for me. And 50 pull-ups.
After 50 pull-ups.
After 50 pull-ups.
Strict 50.
And you have to do 50 pull-ups in 5 minutes or less, right? The timing that you strategize your timing, and I knew I had to get them in under 50 or under 5 minutes.
To do the foxtrot work, which is basically 50 strict pull-ups.
Right.
50 push presses.
24 kilo for, well, it depends on your weight.
And the women, and then 100 clockwork squats, right?
With the 45 club bell.
50, so, and then 50 jumps, 180.
The ball hops. The 180 ball hops.
Under 20 minutes.
Right. But, and then you compound that with echo, which is another workout.
Which you do before.
Right.
So you do a whole workout before. Which is, hard in itself, right? Because you have to use all the highest weights.
Yep. And
you have to show you have it at the alpha level.
Yeah, echo is pretty much about cadence, and then foxtrot, you really, it's just as fast as possible. So you really just crush yourself pushing through it, but you can't lose your tempo and you can't lose your breath control. And then after that, you still have to do the body weight the qualifying round or the qualifying workout, which is all body weight, very explosive body weight movements that are, that's a race. It's a race recover protocol, essentially 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 20 minutes or 35 minutes straight. So it was a beast. I mean, I realized I had to train I think I had the endurance and I had the stamina and I had the technique. I didn't have the strength. And so I spent that 5 months really working on, volume and hypertrophy and really trying to gain some of the strength that I was lacking. And it made a huge difference. But by the time I passed the test, I was done. I knew I had to take a huge break after that. That's all I had.
We joked, right? Like, cause I had to do the 32 kilo.
Yeah.
And after that, we stopped doing push presses.
Oh, yeah. Never again.
Weight,
yeah. Right.
We probably haven't done one. I don't think I've done one since,
no.
We have done one. I think actually.
No. I mean, I'm comfy with a nice 16 kilo. Right. I can do a 20 kilo and it doesn't feel terrible. I can't do it for reps, but 24.
Going back in time, what would you have done different in your training? And what advice would you give others going through it now? We have the virtual certification going on now, and we have, I think, about 30 level 2 candidates. Slightly different, right? Like Nestor has updated a lot of the trainings.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's doing a great job.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing with the online academy.
Because we didn't know, like, things got changed on the fly, right? We would show up and it'd be like, it'd be different than what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And I think over the last few years, there's been a lot of evolutions in the strength and conditioning world in general, learning how to we're always getting better, right? New science is coming out, learning how to take care of your joints better under heavy load. I think the concept of torque strength for stability and power was a concept that I hadn't really explored that much. So I think that we've done a lot of work evolving things. And it's hard to say what I would do different because
in your training,
it's compensation is what I would do different. The short answer is compensation. Way more of a focus on compensation.
Release the tension in your body.
I would not have come out of it. So I was borderline broken at the end of that cert. And that's not what TACFIT's about. And that was disappointing for me because I know better. And I know better now.
Spent all that time with Scott and listening to, the work, right? The stuff that he put out there.
Yeah. And
studying,
and nobody made me do it. Right. I did it. I really pushed myself to limits that I knew were, anytime you're on the brink of peak performance, you're on the brink of injury as well. And I didn't listen to some of the things going on in my body. I started to have some serious soft tissue breakdown. I really had to overhaul my nutrition because I wasn't getting enough carbohydrates and B vitamins to really have tissue repair. The grip, you're over gripping, right? You got the club, you got the kettlebell, you got the pull-up bar, grabbing the floor.
You have to grip,
man, so much tension, and you have to, but
to be able to perform,
but you have to be able to. I have to release it. You've got to turn off that sympathetic switch and get your parasympathetic nervous system to engage and let your body come down from that. That's the magic, right? Is pushing into intensity and then being able to utilize the come down or the release as the antidote to stress.
Right.
And I was just in a state of cortisol for 5 months. I think I just crushed it for 5 months. And I think there's parts of that I'm proud of because it's like, I really pushed through things I didn't think I could do. It would have been easy to quit because I had pain and I had, fatigue setting in a lot of the time. And I did use compensation.
You had your forearms bruised.
Yeah, my
bone bruising from all the push presses.
Kettlebells. The kettlebell would, it rests on and I don't have a lot of meat right here. And so, I ended up with some bone bruising. My soft tissue was, I didn't have any ruptures, but it felt close. And just started to get, I know I was taking care of myself in a way because I couldn't have got through it if I hadn't. But I didn't do enough. And I think that's the hard thing about team leader training is it requires so much volume, right? You have to train strength, you have to train endurance, you have to train recovery capacity, technique, body weight, and explosive power and agility and mobility and flexibility. Like you have to be able to move well. And so it's so many things that it could be your entire day, every day. I mean, it really is like being a pro athlete. And I would literally see a client and then schedule a half an hour for myself to do training and see a client for an hour and then training. And I probably was training 3 or 4 times a day by towards the end. And it was awesome. But if I was to do it again, and I have talked with people about training them for it, and I would 100% prioritize compensation more, because I think I was fighting my own body.
You get stronger in the recovery, huh?
You do. You don't get stronger when you break down.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every strength and conditioning coach knows that. I mean, it's basic anatomy, physiology.
Well, the old school, the old style, it's like, no pain, no gain. That's like that's the mentality.
Yeah.
And, things are changing for sure.
Right.
But, it's not too far back. No pain, no gain. Like the harder the more you push, the stronger you're going to become.
Well, and especially for, type A personalities and for people who have a profession that demands a high capacity, right? Like if you're a fighter, if you're a first responder, if you're a police officer, if you're military, like you have to do such unthinkable things and be able to sustain your physical abilities in stress that it makes sense. I understand why we get stuck in the mindset of like, well, I better train that because I need to be ready for that. So I'm gonna go in the gym and I'm gonna replicate that. And all you're doing is, crushing you're crushing yourself. It's not productive.
Yeah, we always joked about the SAPs, from
sympathetic arousal posturing.
It was sympathetic aroused primal structure from primal stress. The PDF, that's in it.
Yep.
And like I was pretty much that guy that the SAPs, I had SAPs,
Yeah.
And so like, you're talking about fighting and first responders and stuff like that. And you add the years onto your training, you add the years onto your profession, right?
Right.
You become like shaped like that stress.
You become shaped like the thing you do the most.
Right.
Whatever posture you hold the most, it becomes your shape.
Right.
And you have to train the functional opposite of that. You have to release those lines and strengthen the opposite lines to restore balance. And it starts out with like, at first you can kind of, you can do open chain mobility drills, the into flow stuff, and you can kind of restore that parasympathetic tone. But, the more you hold that tension, the more it becomes myofascial density, like scar tissue building up, right? Your body starts to fortify that strength or that position. And then it requires like way more work, closed chain mobility, repetitions, soft tissue work, manual work. It's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think when I've talked with, even just now talking with Scott about what I'm, my job, he's like, your training now needs to be 100% compensatory. Like you can't mess around, training for fun anymore. Like, oh, I think I'll train for the, whatever next certification I feel like getting just because it's fun to learn new skills and accomplish a new goal. It's like you 100% have to be thinking forward to what do you need? What's your response readiness, right? What do you need to be able to do on the job? How do you deconstruct that and take care of your tissues and release, like you just said, release that sympathetic posturing, tension in your body, and prepare to do the job well. Because when you're holding a ton of tension, you're fighting your own body. And that's how I felt in Team Leader. Like things became harder than they needed to be. Whereas if I would have let down more, like let the tension out more and released more and given myself more recovery days in between. I mean, I was doing 6 days a week minimum, sometimes 7. And you end up fighting yourself.
Right. There's in some of this, I think it's the certification manual, the TACFIT certification manual, or just some other content that I've read that Scott has written about the police team, and just how he noticed that they would get tired faster. They would be able to, be ready, but they would also get tired faster just from like basically being shaped over, they would be too much into that shape and they would get tired faster, you know?
Well, it affects your ventilation for sure.
Yeah. It resonated with me, you know, because after like a lot of years and I see my friends, like, you know, like high level, you know, world-class, world champion guys, you know, Olympian guys, whatever, you know, after a lot of years, like things aren't the same, you know, and you become like, they're totally shaped, they're totally closed. Like, you remember my hands, I can put my hands on the ground, you know, and all these guys
grip all the way fully.
Right. And so like just, you know, going through all the things, because you need some stress to change it up, right? To rewire yourself. Absolutely. The right kind of stress.
You do. Sufficient, but not excessive stress.
But going back to that, you know, yeah, exactly. So it's just, you know, it really resonates with me, just that you need to take away that stress, right? Take away the tension in the body so you can actually perform and it's not even getting tired, but be able to perform the task that you need to do.
Right. Well, and I was nervous about coming here to do FlowFit for that very reason. Like if I have a crazy set at work and then I fly and then I show up here, like, am I going to be so full of tension and so kind of locked up that I'm going to tank fast when we try to do FlowFit. And, you know, I actually feel really good. I did mobility this morning, woke up early before I left the station, did my mobility routine. You know, in between airports or in between flights at the airport, did some mobility, and it makes a huge difference to let it out. And then you feel like you can move freely. And when you can move freely, you can breathe. You don't over breathe, right? Because over breathing, I think if anything, that's what I've learned most from Scott, is that, you know, fatigue is not a product of poor conditioning. Fatigue is a product of over breathing. Fatigue is a product of losing the synchrony of your breath and your movement. And when that happens, you trigger fatigue reflex.
It's all interconnected, right?
Absolutely.
The stress and your organs get, you know, pulled a certain way, and you know, then you can't move, you can't breathe.
You can't breathe.
You can't breathe, right? Yeah. And it's just from being stressed for too long, right?
Right. And I think about firefighters, obviously now that's on my mind, is, you know, you wear the SCBA breathing apparatus and you're carrying a ton of gear, and, you know, everybody ends up here. And that really affects your ventilatory capacity and your ability to really open up and breathe fully. And it's already hard enough breathing in those positive pressure masks, and
the stress, you add the stress. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Crazy situations.
Yeah. So it's fun. I mean, it feels like it's a high level. I love this because it's like, there's so many rabbit holes, you know, it's such a high level of training, and you can continue to peel back the onion and learn more and more. The more I practice, the more I learn.
And then how did you go down not the rabbit hole, but how did you change careers and become a firefighter? Well, pretty quickly after becoming a team leader, Ryan Provencher reached out, and he's a captain of the training division in Bellingham with the Bellingham Fire Department. And he reached out to me, and he's like, you know, and I knew what TACFIT Firefighter First Alarm was, which was his original program that he worked on with his partner, Christian Carson, I believe. And, you know, he's like, hey, I want this thing to continue. I want it to evolve. Can you help me, you know, just be a fresh set of eyes and go through the program, comb through it, and let's make it really good again, you know, because like I said, everything's evolving, you know. It was good, and there's so much value in what he put together, but I really appreciated that he wanted more, you know. He wanted to know, like, what have you learned through the system, through TACFIT and circular strength training in the last couple of years that he didn't get a chance to participate in? How can I bring that to the program? And so I spent time working with him, and you know, it just sparked. It's like, how everybody I'm working with is rad. There's a vibe, you know. Firefighters are a family, and it just felt, you know, they're very professional, very compassionate. You know, everybody's a hard driver, everybody's a badass in their own way, but like there's this huge level of compassion. They're serving their communities, and they want to help people. And it just felt like, you know, I think I'm on the wrong side of the table. I want more. Like I want to utilize what I've spent the last decade learning and apply it in a different way, apply it in a more tangible, service-oriented way. And so it was actually Ryan that kind of sparked my idea. And,
I went home and told my husband, and he claims that he planted the idea in my head. So maybe he did, but I remember telling him like, hey, this might be crazy, but I think I want to be a firefighter. And he's like, what took you so long? He immediately was like, absolutely, that's the right career for you. And so I went and applied and quickly got hired as a volunteer in my community, went through academy, EMT school, and then simultaneously was going through, while running my facility, my gym, and seeing clients, I was also going through the interview process to try to get hired as a career firefighter, because I just knew, I was like, I don't need to wait on this. I'm all in. I know this is what I want. And I was really fortunate. I think the timing of things lined up, everything aligned for me, and I got hired within, I think, 2 years of everything, of the idea sparking. Which
usually it's super competitive, right?
Absolutely.
It takes like years and years.
Yeah. I have a buddy he's now been hired, but he tested for 10 years, and I think it makes a difference when you're trying to also have a career and then test on the side. And I think what the privilege that I had was, even though I did have a career and I was running my own business, I had a lot of flexibility, and my husband was really supportive with, like, anytime I had an interview pop up or anytime I needed to be at a test, I could go. And I think the process might be faster if you can just go all in trying to get hired and make that your full-time job. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I know a lot of people, really great people, who they spent a lot of years testing.
And so you got hired, and then could you share the story of, because it's in another city, so you had to like get a place, right? And
yeah, it was a big,
go away from your family and your kids.
Year.
And
yeah, I have some really good friends that live in an adjacent city in the Seattle area, and they run a kind of a family estate, and there was an ADU, a little private studio on their property that they let me rent. And
you had to rent a place.
Yeah, so I had to move down. It was 2 hours from where my family is.
Closer to your
Yep, so that I could be, within a half an hour of the academy. And it was a traveling academy. There was a consortium of 8 departments that collaborated and sent their recruits to academy. And so sometimes we were, there was a multitude of cities that we might be at a number of different fire stations. So I had to live in the Seattle area so that I could easily commute to those places. And also just the headspace. I needed to be able to go home at night and, unpack my bag and wash my clothes and shine my boots and press my uniform and study and pack all my food for the next day. And then, do my mobility before bed, and then, just like 100% head in the game, and then get up. I got up at like 4 in the morning and, did my.
That was Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday. Yep. And then.
So you'd drive there like Monday morning?
I usually.
Because you'd stay home on the weekends?
I would go home on the weekends. I would go home Friday night. I always, as quickly as I could, would take off on Friday and get home and spend Friday evening we call it Friday Fun Day at my house. And it continues. I think it will forever stick. But Friday Fun Day, my kids and I do like a slumber party in the living room and make it fun. So I go home on Friday, and that was a big deal to be able to get home before their bedtime. And then I'd spend all day Saturday with them and all day Sunday. And then in the beginning, I would go back down on Sunday night just because I knew I needed to get dialed. Like I needed to have that headspace. And then as academy started to draw to a close, kind of I think probably the 5th month, I felt more comfortable sometimes driving down on Monday morning. But that was a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah. You had to give everything to be.
Oh yeah.
And how many months was that?
It was 5 months of academy.
So 5 months you had the place. Well, yeah. And you were on probation.
Yeah.
And so you finished academy. That was the hardest part, right?
Academy and EMT school. Well, it's like everything's hard, right? Everything's hard. Like team leader was hard. And then all of a sudden I end up in academy and I realized like it's a whole new level.
Well, just because you weren't, are you on, they pay you when you're in academy?
Yes.
Okay.
That was huge. So volunteer academy.
You've spent a couple of years already at this point in trying to become a firefighter. So, and, if something goes wrong and now you've moved to another city every week.
Yeah, I bought a car.
Right.
We'd always been a 1-car family. Right. I used to commute on foot or by bike my whole life. And all of a sudden now we're investing in a car, second car. And, renting another place, and I'm buying food and equipment. And it was like all of a sudden we had 2 households, it felt like, and it was a huge
sacrifice.
Expense. Yeah. And a huge sacrifice of my time. And I mean, 100% worth it. But, and the year before that, I went through academy on nights and weekends while I was running my coaching business during the day. So in a lot of ways that year was, in some regards that year was even harder because I was home, but I wasn't home. I was just.
During the team leader training, you said?
After team leader training, before I got hired, when I became a volunteer firefighter, it was, I had to do
it's like a lot of years of sacrifice.
Yeah.
For things to go not the way you want them to.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty crazy journey. And, so it was 5 months down in Seattle, and then it was awesome. The day I got to come home and like move back home. And then I had a big graduation. My department had a big graduation for our class. And the next day I was on the line. Well, I think after that weekend I was on the line, and just, it's like baptism by fire. Like you just jump in and realize there is so much about the job you don't learn in academy. Academy is like the tip of the iceberg. They're just, in academy, you're proving that you can handle the physical skills, the stress, the workload, that you can fall in line and obey orders and problem solve quickly and multitask, and you're not afraid, or you're not above cleaning toilets and equipment, and figuring out how you work on a team, how to be a really good team player. And I got out of academy thinking like, I got this. And the first day on the line, I remember I just felt like a shit show. Like all of a sudden there's like a headset in the rig that you wear, and donning your breathing apparatus from your seat is very different than donning it in academy, where we weren't ever, you have 30 people. And so you're throwing it from the ground, just learning station detail, and every rig was different in academy. And now all of a sudden in the department I'm in, there's a fleet. And so I'm learning a whole new rig and just new protocols, new ways of doing things that are department dependent. And it's been a huge learning curve over the last, 9 months.
So during academy, tell me the chainsaw story.
Chainsaw story.
Yeah, that was during academy.
Yeah. So I got a chainsaw injury, but it wasn't as bad as it sounds.
Right. But
I was struggling.
Like I hurt myself with a chainsaw. Like, what?
Are you okay?
You're okay. Like you kidding me?
Yeah. Are you amputated?
No. You think at least a finger? I mean, you probably think like a hand or something. I don't know, an arm.
Yeah, no, I had to.
Or a foot.
When I text my husband, I'm like, "Hey, don't freak out," but I hurt myself with a chainsaw. No. So there's a lot of things in academy that we learn, right? And I think the cool thing about the instructors that I had and the teaching philosophy that they held was, this is the place to fail, right? Like if you fail here, how do you recover from that failure? That's what we care about, because nobody knows this stuff until they know it. You can't know what you haven't learned yet. So fail at it and then prove that you can be resilient and get better and really, improve. And I know that from TACFIT, and yet, it's hard to fail. It's really, I don't like not being able to do something. And so when we stepped into, it was essentially power tool. We were learning power tools. We were doing roof ventilation, and you have to know how to work a chainsaw and a circ saw or rotary saw, and get up on flat to steep pitched roofs and be able to cut things. And there's a number of chainsaws that I've started and never had any problem with. And I realized that this one chainsaw that we happen to have in academy was, it was large enough to be challenging, and it also didn't have a decompression switch. So the chamber, the way that it functioned, like you couldn't decompress the chamber, and I would pull, and that ripcord would get stuck. And I mean, I spent hours trying to figure this chainsaw out, and it was so humbling to be, first of all, being a woman in the academy is like, I don't want to show any weakness, which is not a good mindset, I mean,
because you're like, you became a firefighter at 40 years old, right? a female.
Right.
And then
I was definitely the oldest person in my class.
Like most of the guys, I would assume, are in their 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. And they were great guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But
for sure.
You know, there's something about it that just felt like, and I think
you're trying to prove,
a little bit. I'm trying to prove myself, and I need to have more grace with myself in life in general. And I'm slowly learning that. And this was just another step in that, but I did not give myself any grace with this. I was just really frustrated. I felt like I looked weak. I felt like, I needed to get it. And every time I would try to pull and start this chainsaw, somebody would be like, oh, well, let me see if something's wrong with it. And, a big, massive guy would come over and just start it. No problem. Like, great. That's not helpful. Like, I need to learn, what technique do I use as a smaller person, because I can't do what you just did. So it was great because it really taught me to explore my technique with power tools differently, which is the same with throwing ladders and pulling hose and anything. Like, my technique has to be on point because I don't have the mass that a lot of the guys do. But anyway, so I got frustrated, it was a Friday, I went through an evaluation with my chief and my instructors, and everybody said, we're not worried about it. We know you'll get it, right? Like, we'll teach you, just keep working at it. Like, but don't go home and beat yourself up over it. They were cool. It was a super cool academy. But of course I'm like, I'm coming back on Monday. I'm going to master this thing. So I borrowed a buddy's chainsaw and I went home and I worked it into a circuit, right? I'm doing like TACFIT qual with chainsaw pulls. And, that's like like a protocol where I'm working it in as a strength exercise. And it was helping. I was doing great, but I overdid it that weekend. I trained it so much, and I was training it bilaterally, right? I wanted to be able to start it from both hands. I wanted to be able to start it from any position.
Of course you did, right?
Right. And I ended up rupturing my forearm flexor tendons in 3 places. And I felt it happen. Like, it was just, I was tired and I was like, one more pull, on the left side. And I felt it tear. And, it's terrifying because if you can't do the skills, you can't finish academy. If you can't finish academy, you're out. And there's no, you're done. There's no guarantee. I mean, the department isn't going to keep somebody that isn't viable even. And I have a very supportive department. And, there's just,
you would have had to start all over again.
Testing, interviewing, trying to get hired, starting academy again. And at this point we were almost done with academy. Well, I think we were 2/3 of the way through. So it was,
towards the end,
hugely invested. Yeah. And so, luckily I was able, it swelled up. It was huge.
Years away as a mother from her kids, and so much time and sacrifice.
Well, and I just felt so stupid. It's like, I know better than this.
You took it home on the weekend, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I took a chainsaw home and practiced.
You got it from one of the guys, and he lent it to you so you could get it down.
Yeah. And he was, was a buddy of mine from academy that, I really respected the way he did things. He could always break things down in terms of, mechanical advantage and help me understand how to utilize, my positioning to be stronger, because I wasn't big. And, so his intentions were good. My intentions were good. And it was overkill. It's kind of like team leader training all over again. It's like, I know better. And now I'm learning this for a second time, that like, you cannot bludgeon yourself without negative consequences. And I was, for a time, getting stronger and more skilled at this thing. And then, the tipping point was I wasn't releasing my forearm flexors. I wasn't stretching, wasn't resting and icing. I wasn't taking care of my tissues, and they broke. So, what really got me through that was it happened to be right before we had a week of hazardous materials training, which is all classroom. So I was really fortunate to be, I had 10 days of essentially, I didn't have to do any manual labor for 10 days. We were in a classroom, and I took everything that I've learned from Scott, soft tissue release, mobility. I was doing all of the grip openers, real gentle at first, working my way into more ranges. I got pretty aggressive with some acupuncture treatments. I started taking turmeric as an anti-inflammatory. I was icing, and it was like I pulled out everything, and I miraculously was able to recover enough to pass a couple of grip tests that the doctor cleared me. And the doctor was also cool and very supportive of firefighters. And he cleared me, and I was able to finish academy. And, my instructors were pretty...
Graduate.
they were super supportive of me, but they were also like, you have to be able to do the job. We can't give you special treatment. Like you can't just, we can't give you a pass on some of this because you're injured. Like if you're injured, you're out.
Yeah.
So it was huge learning for me because now I think going into the career, I have this huge memory of the fear of losing my job, losing this opportunity. And so now I think it was a good thing to happen to me in academy because now I'm just like, there's no compromising. I have to take care of myself in a different way with this job.
I talked to you at different times, I remember like, talked about training and stuff and to stay in shape, like the way you were a team leader shape,
right.
You were getting back to team leader shape. And then I spoke to you, some time later and you're like, I just do flow. I recover.
That's what I do.
I do flow. That's my training.
I'd say once a week I lift heavy, just, simple lifts that, and I do all kettlebell and club. I don't have barbells at home. I'd like to learn better the barbell, but right now I use kettles and clubs and a couple of
and we
dumbbells.
got you a mace, right?
And a mace. Yeah. Now I got a mace. I'm excited to learn that. But, I will kind of go back to some of those protocols I was doing for team leader, maybe once or twice a week. And I'll, I remember Scott saying when he was down here one time, he's like, you do have to crush your bones and stress your tissues so they repair fast. You need those osteoblasts and the tissue repair to get stronger and adapt. But you don't need to do it all the time. And that really stuck with me. And so I've implemented that once or twice a week at the most. And then the rest of my training, I might do qual, and that would be a high intensity day. The day before that, I might do qual super gently, right? Just technique, not for speed or time or reps, just technique.
You also play by ear, right? You have much more awareness.
Yeah.
And you listen to yourself a lot more now.
Yeah. I mean,
or else you can't do your job. And
sure. Yeah. I mean,
at home as well,
I think the whole point of this system is to empower people to be intuitive and to be their own coach. And, it feels overwhelming at first, but, being steeped in it for as long as I have been now, I feel like I'm starting to get that where, nobody knows my body better than I do. And I do need an outside accountability, sometimes more than anything, holding me back or sending videos out and having somebody be like, yeah, that looks good, but you look like you look tight in your hips and you're compensating in your lower back, and that's going to get you. So like, you're right. I probably shouldn't be doing that move. I probably should regress that down, make it simpler. And, really, I've really worked hard to take my ego out of my training. And it's just like, how do I feel today? I've done 4-day waves. I've done 7-day waves. On my schedule, I do a 48-96 now. So I kind of do a hybrid of a 6-day wave where my 2 days on shift, I know are inherently high intensity just because of the sympathetic
stress,
just the stress and
sleep
and lack of sleep. And so I know those days are high. So, I might, if I feel great, I might get a hard workout in on those days. And then the rest of the 4 days I'm off is all flow, mobility, compensation, and, maybe a day of heavy strength in there. And so it's, it's flipped from like 80-90% hardcore with like, 10-20% recovery to like, like I said, it's compensatory in nature. My training has become focused on compensating for the stresses that I'm holding in my body.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel the same, with all like that's what I do mainly, right? Too.
Yeah.
Just like, of course I lift and I do my training, but I focus on the flows. I do the flows to recover and to be able to move freely and not being in pain when I move.
Right.
And my friends that have helped, my friend Alshana that's here, like he couldn't train jiu-jitsu anymore because his lower back would hurt too much after training.
Yeah.
And I started showing him some of the flows, and he started watching Scott and he started mimicking, and it changed his life.
Yeah.
And he's able to train.
Yeah.
And
it takes time, but it works.
He's training almost every day, competing again,
Yeah.
So it's like total game changer.
I bet.
And I it's crazy that, we all don't do it, but,
well, and I think when you have pain patterns, there's things that your body will inhibit and shut down to protect you.
Right.
But those muscles need to be turned back on.
Right. Like when I first started doing like the FlowFit and these flows, it was like the worst thing for me. Like my body just awful. you know, cold, like nervous system sweat, you know, like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Your body's just afraid of it.
And I'm like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. But I would fight myself. Right. It was the hardest thing for me to do. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, yeah, it took me like 6 months to straighten my elbows out on the clubbells and stuff. But the flow was the hardest thing for me to do. And
crazy that the hardest thing was the most important thing.
Right. Right. It's crazy how your brain or your nervous system is telling you like, don't do it when that's actually what you need to do.
Well, I think like,
but there's I mean, you progress, right?
Sure.
Just keep, start with interflow, start adding movements, regress, right? Regress the levels like in
absolutely. Find regressions for the regressions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Go back to just find the thing that keeps you underneath pain. Find the thing that, allows you to exhale and breathe through your nose so that you're not, if you pay attention to your breath, it tells you.
Playing with my
where
breath,
you're at.
like getting, better connected so you can do the movements, right?
Mm-hmm. It's hard to do that. Like when you talk about, kill your ego, right? You say that a lot, kill your ego or, leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
I think that's like, it clicked for me one day where I was like, man, if I kill my ego, that means the thing that I want to do is usually the thing that I'm good at and the thing that I enjoy because it feels good, because it, bolsters me because I got it.
Right.
But the thing that's the hardest for me and the most humbling for me, like that's what I need to be training. And there's no ego in that.
Right. Right. Yeah. And like you were talking about like, you're more aware is giving you more awareness, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's what I think that's what I tell people too, like it gives you just better awareness, of course, like your body and stuff but just of self, right? Of self. And that makes you like just a better person because you're able to connect more with just everything, other people. And I see that with jiu-jitsu. And so it's amazing to see that with you can call it like fitness, but it's much more than that. It's like I feel like it's a martial art, this movement system.
Yeah. And I've never done martial arts. And so for me, it feels like a privilege to be able to do something that has those elements without having to fight.
Get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And
I haven't had to do that.
you should do jiu-jitsu though. Jiu-jitsu.
Well, I tried once here. Yeah. I did it once here and I actually took a class in Bellingham. I did a self-defense class and it was awesome. I really have enjoyed it. I haven't carved out time for it.
You just watched Cobra Kai too.
All about Cobra Kai.
Now you got to do it.
Now I know what I'm doing. And now I'm well versed in karate. I think that scientifically, like I love geeking out on the science behind it that Scott shares. That he's always learning about how it grows your brain's capacity. And, essentially if you can't move in a certain direction, right, your brain has lost the map for that movement. It's just erased it. And you just don't know what you don't know. You don't even know you're deficient there. And so this, the flow practice allows you, it reveals the things that you've lost and the things that you don't have access to anymore. And then if you do it right, if you stay under pain, connect with your breath and, do the repetitions in an intentional way that it's productive, you start to remap your brain. And I think anytime you're remapping your brain and you're, arborizing or growing and creating more
different pathways.
Yeah.
Right?
Neuromuscular pathways and your brain's capacity increases all of a sudden. Like, I was able to go through like a huge career shift at 40.
Yeah.
I was able to learn a whole new career path and endure the stresses of academy with 20-year-old men that I don't know that I would have thought I could have done that at 20, and I learn language faster and I feel like my decision-making skills are better and I'm clear and I'm able to react. And you just do, you get better at everything when your brain, I feel like movement gives you access to your brain. It's amazing how it heals.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in my team, there's just it's like the movie Limitless, right? Like you take a pill, but just TACFIT's like just a holistic, complete system, right? Stress, but not too much stress, the breath, just all these components, right? If you do it right.
And I think you
get smarter, you get better, you get, you live your life to the fullest.
Your best. Yeah, absolutely. Your best. And when your hormones get balanced again,
right.
And when you found the antidote to stress, right? Like eustress combats distress. And so if you're getting eustress, if you're getting dopamine pathways, increased dopamine pathways, you have better access to serotonin. You're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better. then you're going to have more acetylcholine, and then you're going to have your brain, your body's going to heal faster. Like, it's just, the cascade is amazing. And I think, unfortunately, you can kind of tip it to extremes on either side, just like anything, right? You can teach flow or movement with too little stress, right? You're not pushing hard enough. Right. You're not teaching people how to find their edges and push their capacity. Maybe not 100%, but the optimal is between 40 and 80%, right? That's where flow state happens. So if you're between 40 and 80% of your heart rate max, shooting for 60, you're able to stay cognitively aware. You're able to focus on your breath. You're able to find your technique, recover your technique, but it has to be sufficient stress. So you can't just bliss out. You have to work hard. And then on the flip side of that, some people teach, fitness philosophies that it's just too much stress. It's like, balls to the wall, go 100% today. This is the workout of the day, and you need to crush it. And that, I don't know that anything productive happens above about 80-85% heart rate max, because now you're just,
the science is there now,
you're just catabolizing.
The science is there where
so much cortisol and adrenaline just toxifying your system, and then you need twice as long to recover. And so I think
Scott's
the sweet
been saying
spot
these things, for I don't know how long, like decades, right? Yeah. But now the science is there, so now it's science.
Yeah.
But
but there is a sweet spot, like you're right. It has to be sufficient stress, but not excessive. And when you find that, you find the magic of how flow style, linking, essentially what I think of as flow is taking complex movement patterns, or at least compound into complex movement patterns, and linking them together with transitions, doing them in a sequence. And so you're exploring the in-betweens rather than, the squat is a movement, but how do you get from a squat to the ground? And how do you get, how do you roll on the ground? And then how do you get back up again? And, how do you go into extension and find a tripod and strengthen the functional opposite of, everything we do in the front? And I think, that's what flow is for me. It isn't a certain set of exercises. It isn't a prescribed workout. It's exploring the transitions between movements with your breath cadence and sufficient but not excessive stress.
Going back to your firefighter.
Sure.
Okay. So you finished academy, graduated, and you started your probation, which you just finished, right? This last month? Mm-hmm. Like this last month, literally, right?
September. Yeah. The beginning, September was my first month off probation.
Yeah. So, what was that like after finishing? What was it like during probation? What did you have to do? You went to different stations, right? Something like
yes. So probation for my department is a year, and part of that is academy and EMT school. I see. That's where I was able to make all this work.
I just seemed like you're doing this for like years, like years. You disappeared, like we're like doing TACFIT stuff, and then you're like,
I know. I remember having to tell you like, hey, I love this and I want to be part of this, but I can't give anything to this right now. Like I can't be part of, I have to, focus and commit. And so I need to step back and not be part of TACFIT for about a year. And it felt like it went on forever. But probation requires that I spend about 3 months or more at each of 3 stations. My department has more stations than that, but there were 3 specific that are very busy and are well suited for rookies to get experience. And it's a process of continual evaluation. So as a probationary firefighter, every day is an evaluation. Physically, I'm being evaluated on my skills. My company, my officer and my driver and I are often going out and doing what are called evolutions, where you simulate an emergency and you go through the motions of, what hose line would we pull? Where would we throw the ladder? Go force the door, and you just go through the motions.
You got to be 100%, right?
You put all your skills in play. Yeah. So a lot of that. And then simultaneously you have a probationary firefighter handbook. It's this huge 3-ring binder that you essentially go through section by section. There's 5 sections that progress you through the knowledge of all the things you didn't learn in academy or things that you need to expound on. Just constantly testing my knowledge and forcing me to go out and research, what are our standard operating guidelines on this? what are our best practices? How do we work with the responding areas, or the areas which we share mutual aid with, so that I know, if we roll up first to a fire, what's our role? Or if we roll up third, if we're the third arriving unit to a fire, like what's my role? So there's no questioning once you get there, you just know and you go. And so it's a ton of information, knowing your equipment and your tools and your breathing apparatus and your gear and your rig, knowing it inside and out so that you don't have to think, you can just act when you need to. Learning how to problem solve, learning how to give short reports. So if I roll up on a scene, if I'm in an aid car and it's just two of us, I might actually be the officer for the day, which seems crazy because I'm, I've been a firefighter a month off probation, and it might be my job to give a short report to dispatch and say, this is what we have, this is what we need, this is what we're doing. And it seems easy, but man, when you're stressed and nervous, it's hard. So all of those things, my department did an incredible job of giving us as probationary firefighters a comprehensive set of material to just set us up for success with everything. And everybody I worked with was 100% committed to training hard. And they don't have to, they know the job. And a lot of the guys and women, they train hard all the time anyway, because they love it and they want to stay sharp. But it felt like, for a year, I'm the center of attention, and which is stressful, but it's also awesome, because what a privilege to have everybody in my department pouring into me to help me be the best firefighter I can be. And, I loved it. I loved probation, which I don't know that a lot of people have that experience, but I felt like my department was authentic and they're fun people, and, we work hard, but there's a lot of camaraderie already, even being brand new, which I did not expect. They treated me like an adult, like I'm, a professional woman with a lot of life experience. They definitely made me feel that, even though I have no experience in this. Everybody's very gracious and also very hard. Like there was a lot of very blunt critiquing of what needed to get better, and that it needed to get better quickly. But they also gave me lots of room to fail, and like, hey, this is where you fail. Because when we get on the fire ground, you don't want to fail, right? Fail here in training and learn something new every day. So that was probation. And now that it's over, it's amazing the stress that has been lifted. I don't think I realized how much
Congratulations.
I was holding. Yeah, but it feels good.
What were your favorite parts of becoming this process, this firefighter process?
My favorite
part.
Yeah, my favorite part. I would have said academy, because academy was really fun.
Was there a specific moment?
Oh, a moment. Man, that's a hard question.
You can just name one.
This is going to sound super, this is probably going to sound super hokey, but at graduation, I'm in uniform. And my kids are seeing me in uniform for the first time, because I was living in Seattle the whole time and I didn't really bring my gear home. And at graduation, seeing my husband and my girls see me, up there with the chief pinning my badge on, and that it's legit. And they gave me my helmet with the probationary shield and assigned me to an engine company, and just felt like we did it. Like it's been Team Sawaya for a couple of years, and it's been a really hard couple of years. And that was a really cool, they gave so much. Like my girls were just so willing to be okay with me being gone. Oh, you're going to make me cry. They were so good at letting me be gone. I'd show up on Friday and they weren't upset. They weren't frustrated with me. It was really hard to leave on Sunday, but they were always like, Mama, you're awesome. You know how awesome you are. We're proud of you. And, anytime I try to say, do you know that you're strong and that you're smart and that you're capable? I tell them that all the time. And my oldest daughter started mirroring it back to me when I was in academy. She's just like, Mom, do you know that you're strong and you're smart and you're capable? And it's like, I didn't think that would be a hard thing for me to hear from my daughter, but it like hit me every time that like, man, I'm so glad you believe in me. And I think I need to believe in myself more sometimes. And I'm so glad you get to see this process. I want you to be inspired by this. You know, I want you to grow up knowing that you can do anything you decide to do, and that you put your focus into. And I think that all kind of came together when I was at graduation, and then I got to hug them, and we did pictures. And, you know, I don't have a lot of pictures. My husband and I, for some reason, he kind of avoids photos. He's a photographer and he doesn't like being in photos. And there's just some beautiful moments that were captured. And I was like, man, that felt like the culmination of a huge undertaking that I could not, there's no way I could have done that without them.
Even your TACFIT team leader.
Yeah.
Right.
But I couldn't have done it without them. Right. I mean, my husband took over everything. He managed everything in our life. He's now absorbed, you know, COVID happened. He took on homeschool, you know, like now that I'm on shift, but I was on probation. I'm home, but now I'm studying all the time, and I'm going out and I'm training, and, you know, I'm keeping my body strong. Like there was so much that I was still doing, even out of academy this last year on probation, where he just owned it. He's like, you do what you need to do. Like, we got this, you know, and there's no way I could have done this process without them. So that was my favorite moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Worst moment.
Feeling my forearm flexors rip was a pretty shitty moment, because I thought, no, it was when I had to sit down around a table with the director of the academy, and there were two, and the lead instructor, and then a captain and a lieutenant from my department who were coming in place of the chief to basically tell me that I think I was finished with academy. That was the worst moment. I felt so panicked and helpless. I couldn't believe it. It's like, this is absolutely not happening. And I convinced, they were gracious enough to give me a chance to see it out for a week to 10 days, right? Because they knew I was going to be in a classroom mode, and to get professional opinions from, you know, whatever the doctor could see on the MRIs and through his, you know, tissue testing, like, give it 10 days and then see where I'm at. But I think they were all pretty convinced that I was out, and I could see it the way they were looking at me. And that was awful. It was one of the worst moments in my life, for sure. And I knew that wasn't how it was going to go down. That wasn't how I was going to end. No way.
You could have. No way.
It was too much. We'd put in too much.
Yeah.
No way. I wasn't going to start over. I mean, I would have started over if I had to, but I wasn't going to start over unless I knew there was no other way. So, yeah, that was intense.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
On all of your success.
Thank you.
Team leader. I was lucky enough to see that.
You were. Well, you didn't just see it.
Well,
you supported me through it.
Yeah.
You filmed it.
Yeah. We documented it, you know, since there was nothing, you know, going on.
You were in it with me.
Yeah, I was in it. Yeah, for sure. And becoming a firefighter, it's amazing, you know. Wow, what an example for you know, not just women but men too, you know, just to never give up and follow through, and, you know, believe and achieve.
Right.
And congratulations on the Firefighter 101.
Thank you.
And that process happening now. And congratulations to the FlowFit 101. I'm really excited. You know, you're one of my favorite people to teach and to do this, you know, so I'm really excited to you know, have that come out, and that's just the beginning also as well. And I look forward to seeing a lot more of that. You know, we're going to be doing some FlowFit for the certification coming up, right? Some content for that. And I'm just really excited, and I feel really blessed and lucky to, you know, just to have been a part of that process in the past with your team leader, level 2 TACFIT, and to know you, you know, after you were actually at my first TACFIT cert as well.
Right.
You know, so just to kind of be in line these different times, you know, so thank you.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for the support that you've given me through so many of the processes, and to be here, to be given the opportunity to put together a FlowFit program, to be part of the certifications, to just even have the capacity to do TACFIT Firefighter the way that you're doing it now is a huge honor. So thank you.
Honor's mine. Thank you.